always get to choose in this life, win and lose in this life. But I'ma prove in this life, we can move in this life. Can't change up, my team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year, can't change up. My team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year, can't change up. My team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year, can't change up. My team too real, so we stay up. Yeah, this is our year.
Welcome to Diamond State Scouting. I am Josh Wingate, and we are a part of the Say It Again network. You can follow me on at Josh Wingate 302. Follow Diamond State Scouting at DSS Scouting. And I have a very special guest from the network, Jordan Katz. You can follow him, Jordan Katz 11. How you doing, Jordan?
What's going on, man? Happy to be here. Apologize for the glare. Tried to figure it out for 20 minutes. Couldn't figure it out. Playing through a little bit of a cold, so we got a little bit of a cold game going on here, but we're gonna make it work.
Go. It's not the flu game, so you're good.
It's not the flu game. No, it's not the flu game.
So yeah, you just released, I think this week, a mock draft, and everyone loves a mock draft this time of the year. Walk me through your process of actually coming up with a mock draft, because I know everyone's different, and it can be a stressful thing.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is understanding whether you're going for a mock draft of what you would do if you controlled all 32 teams, or whether you're going for it from a prediction standpoint. I find that the people at the top tier experts, don't always do a good job of communicating whether this is based on their big board and their idea of team needs and their opinions of what teams should do, or whether it's based on what they hear around the league. For me personally, I strictly went at this trying to get every single pick right. Only did 2 rounds this time, but I went at it trying to get every single pick right. So there's no personal influence from me in terms of my evaluations. We'll get into those during the show, and we'll get into where I might disagree with somebody that I have rated highly, or likewise, somebody I might have rated lowly. All right. So this is just strictly trying to be as accurate as I can be based off of what I've heard, based off of what I've seen from the experts, and kind of the buzzwords that people are using around certain prospects.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll get right into it. With your first overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have Ike Ekwonu, offensive tackle from NC State. Walk me through that pick and
sure. So for starters, I think the Jaguars are really in an interesting position here. Not only does this draft not have a true top five guy, a true elite talent, but the Jaguars are also so desperate for offensive line, right, Josh? They need to build around Trevor Lawrence here. And even though Aiden Hutchinson's the top guy, you're sitting there with Josh Allen and K'Lavon Chaisson, who they plan on apparently using a little more of. I don't know if edge is the move for them. What's interesting about this pick is Jacksonville can go a number of different ways. Could they just pick Aiden Hutchinson and say, figure it out? Absolutely. Could they take Ike Ekwonu or Evan Neal? Absolutely. Could they trade, depending on if a quarterback emerges or a team is interested? Absolutely. If I were in Jacksonville's shoes, I would be teasing a trade right now. I would say I want no part of this pick. Go ahead.
I think I saw that they said they're willing to trade out.
That's what I would do right now. Is I would tease a trade today for the next month, and I would see if anybody could bite and give me a chance at depth. Jacksonville has to come away with offensive line, right?
Yeah.
But you can do that in this draft later on down the board. Let's say Philadelphia's sitting there. Philadelphia has 3 first-round picks, but not as many needs as people think, especially if they go make a play at Calvin Ridley. If they go make a play to solve their receiver need, they don't have as many needs as people think. What if Philadelphia wants to sit there and say, hey, we're going to give you 2 first-round picks so we can come up and take Aiden Hutchinson? That's in play. Yeah. And if you're Jacksonville, now you slide down to 15, 16, right? All of a sudden, now you get Charlie Cross. Now you get Tyler Linderbaum, right? Now you can get Kenyon Green. You can get you could get 2 offensive linemen for the price of 1. You could sit there at 33 and get Trevor Lawrence a weapon. Now all of a sudden you've built an offense, right? Yeah. So that to me is the move. If they stayed there, I think Ekwonu makes more sense at this moment in time than Evan Neal, just because I think Icky checks every single box. That's the first time we've used that buzzword. We're going to use it a lot. For mock drafts, you use it a lot.
Yep.
So just be prepared, people. Icky checks that every single box, and he tested well. And I think we were talking before the show, Josh, and I know you agree with me. The fact that Evan Neal didn't test, you think could hurt him as well in terms of being the top pick.
Yeah, I'm still – so offensive line is one of my favorite positions to evaluate. And I'm completely different than what they have in the media and whatever you're hearing. I have Charles Cross as my top offensive lineman right now.
Okay.
I think he is – if he was in last year's draft, he'd be just under Slater, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think he is that good. People are kind of down on him because he's not in as many run plays as you would a normal offense. But he's an elite pass protector, and there's no questions about that. If I'm Jacksonville, personally, I would go Charlie Cross over Ike Ekwonu and Evan Neal, and that's just my opinion. But I agree with you as far as I would trade back, trying to acquire some picks. I hope Philadelphia doesn't try to trade up because I don't want them to get a top-tier talent as a Cowboys fan. But it'd be smart of them. But I think they need to go get a receiver, get some offensive line talent, and build around Trevor Lawrence like you said.
Absolutely, which makes this pick really interesting. I think as far as Charlie Cross goes, the thing you like about him, right, you love his ability in the vertical set, right? His ability to kick out and beat edges to the arc, and the ability to then control the point of attack from there.
And I question that on Ike Ekwonu. I don't know if he can consistently get there.
I think I'm on board with you, but I think what Eric Fisher showed you once upon a time is if you're in the right system, you can make up for certain deficiencies you have. Eric Fisher was in the wrong system as the first pick, went to the right system as in his second act in Kansas City, became a really quality offensive lineman, and then wound up going to Indianapolis, right? I think the system for Jacksonville last year with Urban made more sense for Charlie Cross. This year with Doug Peterson, where we're going to try to be physical on the edge and we're going to try to run outside and use our tackles to be our bulls, that might make more sense for Ekwonu and Evan Neal.
I can see that, definitely. As far as Evan Neal, I don't know if he's a left tackle. In my opinion, I think he might be a right tackle guard.
I'm with you.
Yep. So I think we don't have to touch on this too much because I know it's the world trying to make this happen. Your second pick is Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson, edge. Michigan, I think everyone wants to see Aiden Hutchinson and Dan Campbell just paired together.
Yeah, I think they do. I think on top of the fact that he's a Michigan guy, it makes sense. Listen, the interesting thing about Detroit is Detroit needs a quarterback. And we were talking before the show about how Malik Willis has kind of separated himself this weekend. Maybe Malik Willis starts to become in play at 2 for Detroit. I don't know that I would sleep on that. I think Malik Willis has established himself as the guy that is going to go the highest of the quarterbacks. And because of that, and because the class is not viewed as great, you could see that guy jump all the way to 2. What people forget about Watson and Mahomes' class is that Mitch Trubisky was viewed as the cream of the crop of a not so great class. There were questions about Watson. Obviously, Mahomes was the darling, but anybody who scouted that year knew the risk that went into Patrick Mahomes, and he wound up in a perfect system. People like to knock the Bears for that pick. I don't know that Deshaun Watson becomes Deshaun Watson if he goes to the Bears, and I certainly know that Patrick Mahomes does not become Patrick Mahomes if he goes to the Chicago Bears. System is so important for a quarterback's development, more so than any other position, right, Josh? So if you're looking at Malik Willis and why you would take him at 2, it's because you get a free chance to sit him. Jared Goff can play the whole year, no questions asked. You can build out a roster and insert Willis last. That is a perfect scenario. So it's Hutchinson with an asterisk.
Yes. And I think everyone, like I said, everyone wants to see that to happen. But I would love for Malik Willis to go somewhere where he can sit. I think he does need to sit and learn and develop as a player. He's not someone you can plug and play right away. And
agreed.
I I just want the best for Willis because on this show we have a thing called Willis Watch. So every show we come up and we talk about what we know about Willis and what has happened weekly on Willis because he's our guy. He's our number one guy.
Love it.
And I don't know. I don't want to see him go to Detroit just for the fact it's Detroit. But you never know. And speaking of Willis, you actually have a trade up for him.
I do.
With the 3rd overall pick, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, which has been widely talked about, the Steelers moving up to go get Willis because they want a running quarterback. But they trade with the Houston Texans, and it looks like you have them trading 20, 52, 84, and their 2023 first-round pick, along with their 2023 third-round pick for that pick, which is great compensation. I love that because a lot of people don't like to do fair compensation. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you on that.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
and
I tried to model that off of the Goff trade, just to try to predict again.
Yes.
You're right. Like people, for some reason, try to steer clear of good compensation. I don't get it. If you're going for a prediction mock,
Yep.
right? We're here to try to be right.
Put the work in and do it right.
Why lowball, right? You know?
Oh, I agree. So how do you feel, because we talked about it's ideal to sit Willis. Do you think that would be an opportunity in Pittsburgh for him to sit there?
Nope.
Yep.
Which is why I don't love it.
But
go ahead.
No, you go ahead and then I'll respond.
The thing about Willis is Pittsburgh is a spot that makes sense. They're not hiding it. Washington's a spot that makes sense. They're not hiding it because you can walk in, make mistakes, and you've got a defense to make up for it, right? The interesting thing about that scenario is sometimes you wind up taking a guy's ceiling and doing this with it. And so that's the risk reward if you go get your guy and you're going to sit there and let him make mistakes. I am a avid Jet fan. One might call it a diehard. That was probably the issue with Mark Sanchez once upon a time. The Jets walked in, and with that defense, the Jets allowed Mark to make mistakes because they had a defense that didn't, really hurt him. And all of a sudden, that ceiling at a top 5 pick kind of went like this. And eventually, it all came to a head when Mark was asked to carry a roster. So in terms of Malik Willis, the reason I like the fit to Pittsburgh is because I don't think he'll ever be asked to carry a roster. In terms of would I rather him sit? Absolutely.
So my hope and what I was going to say was if the Steelers do want to make this pick and they are all in on Malik Willis, I'd like to see them go into free agency, get maybe a Tyrod Taylor or even a Teddy Bridgewater, who I find is very intelligent quarterbacks and someone that they understand their role in the NFL as a fringe starting quarterback, possible backup quarterback. And they would be willing to help Malik Willis along in the way of teaching him the game, but also not allow him to start because Tyrod and Bridgewater are capable enough to play for a season. That's my hope if the Steelers do go after him. I want to see them make a move in free agency because I don't think Mason Rudolph is the answer for that. And he just comes across, obviously, as a prick, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, on top of the fact that Mason Rudolph, I don't think has the talent to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Doesn't seem like he's a particularly wonderful teammate either. So I think that's a clean slate there. I think it makes a lot of sense. And again, if you're somebody who is of the mindset of none of these quarterbacks deserve to go in the first round, I actually don't disagree with you. But here's the thing. There will always be quarterbacks that go in the first round because there's going to be some kind of hype train that follows somebody.
Positional
value.
In
this case, exactly, positional value. In this case, that's Malik Willis. So if you're trying to get a mock right, just put a quarterback into the top 10, pick one. You don't have to pick Willis. If you believe that Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett's resume is the best, if you think he's going to be the guy, that's fine. But you better stick him in the top 10, if not the top 5, because history showed you somebody's going there.
For sure. And I think you got it right with the first quarterback off the board. But let's move on to your team, the Jets, Jets, with Kayvon Thibodeau, edge out of Oregon. I'm interested in what you think about him as a player as well. And I have to say this before you go. I love what the Jets are doing through the draft. Last year they drafted one of my favorite offensive linemen in Elijah Vera-Tucker,
Yeah.
and my favorite running back in Michael Carter. So I love what they're doing there. So
I do too. I think they're building a really nice foundation there, and I trust in Joe Douglas and I trust in Robert Saleh. The Jet entire draft depends on what they do in free agency. It's very hard to predict what the Jets are going to do before they go spend their money. And people think that the draw for the Jets in free agency is the New York market and Zach Wilson. If you listen to people around the league, the draw for the Jets in free agency is actually Robert Saleh. People are so high on this guy. Everybody loves to play for him. Everybody thinks he's a true leader. I think he's the draw in free agency more so than a young rookie quarterback that is as talented as Wilson, or the amount of picks that they had to fill out a roster. I think the draw is Robert Saleh, and the goal is going to be for him to convince guys to come here. Now, if the Jets go out in free agency and do what I think people expect them to do, which is address at least one starter on the offensive line and address what was a really poor defense last year, they're still going to wind up with 4 picks in the top 40. So you've got opportunities to pair guys with other players. One of those opportunities is to pair an edge rusher like Thibodeau with Carl Lawson coming back from injury, right? That's a big opportunity. And you've got Quinn Williams and John Franklin Myers in the middle. That becomes an elite defensive front as far as pass rushing goes. Kayvon Thibodeau's agent did a wonderful solid. Did you hear the report a couple weeks ago where they thought he was going to go to the Giants? Did you see that come out?
no,
They
I did
leaked
not.
that. Kayvon Thibodeau came out in an interview and said he thought he was going to go to the Giants. The reason that was so brilliant is because the Jet fan base over the next 24 hours exploded on social media that the Jets would possibly pass on Thibodeau at 4, largely because they're afraid to take another safety in Kyle Hamilton. But that's a different story for a different day. I think Thibodeau is a really interesting prospect because the player that you see on tape and the dynamic ability to rush the passer doesn't explain why he's falling, right? That means one of two things. We're on the outside. That means one of two things. One, people are lower on his ability as an athlete and a pass rusher than people think. I don't know about you, Josh. That's not me. Is it you?
I think he has a lot of room to improve. I think he's a lot of athletic ability right now, but he has room to improve as a pass rusher.
Okay. So Josh is actually, it sounds like you're of the mindset that he actually is a little overvalued at this stage in the game.
I slightly, yes.
Okay. To me,
I can see the value though, the positional value and
Sure.
his athletic ability.
To me, the concerns here could be from a character standpoint. Because when people start dropping him, or anybody, for an unrelated football reason, or kind of talking about playing going like this and dipping up and down, that sometimes leads to character issues that we don't know about. So I wonder if that's the case. If he checks every box for you off the field, to me, the guy on the field is worthy of a top 5 pick. I think you've got a guy that understands how to use his power as a pass rusher. I think he understands how to get by opposing tackles with his shoulder dipping under. I don't know if he has perfect lower body flexibility right now, and I think he can improve a little bit in terms of his moveset. But if you listen to the guy at the combine, the guy wants to be here, wants to work, and wants to do football. So if he checks all the boxes for you, if I'm the Jets, I would take him at 4, no questions asked.
I agree. If he checks boxes, then you definitely have to. But I'm curious on your thoughts on this. There's a guy that used to play for the Jets. He comes into my job all the time, and he says, I want to see cornerbacks on this team because we do not have cornerbacks. Nick Mangold all the time is talking about cornerbacks. I'm curious, do you not see the value of them taking one here, or did you not see the player? It was just Thibodeau was just too good to take at this moment rather than a cornerback.
First off, Nick is one of my favorite players of all time. Yeah. So if I knew that Nick had said that, I would have changed my mock just to appease Nick. Second of all, I think the interesting part about the cornerback class is while it's really good and really deep, I don't know if as of this moment there is a guy that I would throw into that top 5 lock category. There's a potential for Sauce Gardner to wind up there after this weekend. Sauce Gardner is probably the most elite cover corner in the draft. At 6'2", he checks the box there for Robert Saleh, who likes those long athletic corners, right? He loves Bryce Hall because Bryce Hall is long and athletic. So Sauce Gardner checks that box. You're not looking for 4.4 speed this weekend at a Sauce Gardner, right? 6'2", that's unrealistic. My target is always Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman ran a 4.56. That is a wonderful number for a bigger corner. If I can see 4.55 out of Sauce Gardner, maybe I do think about putting him at 4 and then going edge rusher later on because edge rusher is so good. That is a possibility for the Jets. I think the wild card for the Jets is Kyle Hamilton. He's the best player in the draft. The Jets need talent, but he's a safety, and that's not positional value. Exactly. And the fan base just had to sit and watch Jamal Adams. So can you sell that? I don't know.
I agree with that. I go to Twitter Spaces all the time. It's Baltimore Raven Twitter Spaces, and I tell them constantly, if there's going to be possibly 2 players that fall in the top 10, Kyle Hamilton, just for the positional value, not saying the type of player he is, but, and I always compare him to this, Malik Hooker didn't go top 10. Nope. And Malik Hooker was compared to Ed Reed when he was coming out. Everyone said this is the next Ed Reed.
Sure was.
Career didn't turn out to be that way because of injuries. Kyle Hamilton, I don't know. I'd probably say he's a better overall safety than Malik Hooker was. But
I think that's fair.
I think Malik Hooker was just that much more elite as a cover safety, not saying that Kyle Hamilton isn't. But I just think Hooker was just that guy compared to Ed Reed. I think he could fall out of that top 10 very easily just because of the position he plays. Yep. I have previously stated I want to see him in cornerback drills at the combine just because he might be big, but I think he has that athletic ability. He possibly could be a cover corner. You
want to see that back pedal. You want to see if it's fluid. You want to see that. Listen, my favorite day for the drills is DB day.
Oh yeah, well,
I think it's that the set of drills that they run as far as that straight line back line, I think is the most comparable thing that we have in terms of real game anything. And I think it's so easy to see a guy that has it versus a guy that doesn't. I think if you watch the drills for the offensive linemen, you can check traits. You watch the guys for the defensive linemen, you can check traits. I legitimately think if you watch that back pedal for corners, you could legit cross guys off. Like you could take guys off your board on that straight back pedal because it is something.
I think teams have.
Yeah, it is something that really, really tells you what a guy can do and what a guy can't do. The interesting part about Kyle Hamilton, and this is where if I were a Jet fan that was anti-safety, I would be concerned. Robert Saleh really loves a 4.25. And I don't know if there is a better chess piece in the draft for a straight 4.25 defense than Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
So if I were a Jet fan that did not want safety, that would be my concern.
Yeah. So with your next pick, you have the New York Giants getting Evan Neal, offensive lineman, Alabama. I'm curious of where, if you were the Giants, where you're going to play him, and then as well your thoughts on the pick.
So in my first mock, this was actually a trade for Russell Wilson. In my first mock that I released in January, I backed that off because I'm starting to think that Russell Wilson does not get moved, even though they're starting to become buzz. There's another element to the Russell Wilson trade that people are not talking about, and this is going to sound a little dumb because it's something that everybody should think about, but Sierra's got to sign off on the trade.
Oh, yeah.
Sierra ain't going to Pittsburgh. I don't care what you want out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't personally see that as a possibility, which is why when he originally named teams, he named Chicago, New Orleans, and New York. And of the three, people thought New York made the most sense. Why? Because it's the biggest market and it makes sense for the family. Okay. If they stay where they are in terms of not going to get a quarterback and trying to lean on Daniel Jones, you've got to be able to protect him, right? The perfect situation here for Evan Neal is going to play guard. Because I've got Andrew Thomas on one side, who had a much better second half of the year than people want to give him credit for. People want to label that as a bust, but he had a really good second half of the year.
And that's why I asked you where you're going to play him, because of Andrew Thomas.
He had a really good second half of the year. I like Matt Pert a lot at right tackle. I liked him coming out of the draft. I thought he was a quality right tackle that could eventually go to left. I've seen a guy that's been quality on the right side. He got hurt, which makes me think that maybe Neal does go to right tackle, but either way, it ain't going to be left tackle. It'll be right tackle or right guard for Evan Neal.
And I think that's a perfect spot for him. I think you find a value for that fifth pick there with him, because I think you throw him at left tackle, and you had the same issue you had with, I want to say Duke, can't think of his name right now, the last Alabama offensive tackle that got drafted in the first round. He went to right tackle. He didn't belong there, and they had to slide him in the guard. I don't think Evan Neal belongs at left tackle. You would eventually have to slide him over at right tackle and just throw him there and get the value out of him now.
And I think that's fine. I mean, his skill set makes sense for the right side, right? He's terrific in the jump set. He gets his hands on you quick. When he gets his hands on you, he wins. Right tackle. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that.
I always tell people, you're going to look back on the draft 2 years from now, and you're just going to look at, did the player become successful or not?
Yep.
And you're not going to care where they play. You could have drafted Zach Martin 4th overall in his draft. He's a guard, but guess what? He's one of the best guards to play in the NFL today.
Absolutely.
So you don't care. You just know you got a very good pick at that time.
Yep.
So with your next pick, you have Washington Commanders drafting Kenny Pickett, quarterback, Pittsburgh. I'm curious as to why Kenny Pickett is I think I understand why, but I always felt like Corral would be the second quarterback off the board.
All right. So again, I'm doing this strictly prediction.
Yep.
This is not my own personal belief of Kenny Pickett. I'm just trying to be right. To me, it's very simple. One guy's healthy, one guy's not. I really think it could come down to that little. As far as Pickett goes, Pickett has the resume in terms of the tape, in terms of what he did in college. That's right there with Corral. And when you talk about the best abilities availability, one's available day one is not. So that really could be that all it takes for a team to go Kenny Pickett. In terms of why Washington, it's because Washington probably strikes out from the veteran market. I think they're in on Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think they get him because they're in the NFC. I think they're in on Russell Wilson, but they don't get him because Russ doesn't get traded. And I think they will turn around and be in on a Kirk Cousins reunion, but I think Cousins will wind up elsewhere. If they strike out across the board, they now become desperate. Desperation leads usually to giving up a lot. Now, I did not do that. I went for fair evaluation, which you can attest for because you're staring at the compensation, right? I didn't give up a lot.
No, you have the 11th overall pick, the 42nd overall pick, and a 2023 second round pick.
So 1 and 2 twos. That's very fair.
Yep.
But don't be shocked if a team rips Washington off because they're so desperate.
I could actually see, so my thought process with Washington, they want to draft a quarterback no matter what. I think unless they can go out and get a top tier Aaron Rodgers or something like that, I don't think they're settling for anything less than that. They have a new team name. They basically have a new franchise. They're looking at building a new stadium.
Yep.
They want someone that can be the face of the franchise and get everyone excited.
Yep.
So I could very well see them going after Malik Willis.
Sure.
Going as high as 2, or I don't think 2 is going to be up for trade. Might be going up to 1 to get a quarterback or to 3 to get a quarterback. And I think they're just doing what they can. They want that face of the franchise guy. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Malik Willis as a Washington Commander at this point.
Yeah, no, that was what I had in my first mock in January. Is I had them going to 3. I could absolutely see that. I think the bidding war for Malik Willis is going to involve more teams than people think.
Yeah.
It may only be, obviously, Malik Willis can only go one spot, right? It may be that Pittsburgh trades up for him, and it may be as simple as that. But I think if you ask people behind closed doors, hey, were you in on Malik Willis? I'm going to tell you the teams that I think are in on him. Pittsburgh, Washington, Carolina, don't sleep on the Giants, and Detroit.
That's one of my favorite spots for him to go.
I think every one of those teams could wind up being in on Malik Willis, or at least taking a very long look at picking him.
I think Daboll is going to see slight glimpse of Josh Allen in Malik Willis, and he's going to be like, I want that. I want to mold that and show that I am the greatest quarterback coach ever.
He will have taken two guys
raw
with
talent,
massive arms, but accuracy issues and a little bit of technique issues, and he will have taken both guys and turned them into elite quarterbacks. That is a giant chip on your shoulder if you can be able to do that. And they already declined Daniel Jones's fifth-year option. So you're sitting there with two top 10 picks and an uncertainty at quarterback.
And in New York, you can allow him to sit, let Daniel Jones go, whatever, figure out what you have from him. I mean, it's not ideal.
Straight competition.
Yeah.
What's wrong with straight competition at the quarterback position? Let them
Nothing
both
ever.
run and see what happens.
The NFL seems to hate it, but it's not bad at any position, in my opinion.
I agree.
So with the 7th overall pick, you have the New York Giants taking, with this pick, David Ojabo, edge from Michigan. I know he's a darling in the media right now.
Yep.
How do you view this, and what made you think that, because they took a defense end last year in the first round, do you think, obviously you do, that they would come out with the same position in the first round again?
Yeah, I think they're going to look for trenches, and I think they need pass rushers. I think Leonard Williams has shown you what he does when he's with a pass rusher. Flashback 2 years ago when he's got Marcus Golden, and this year when he did not and was not as effective. In terms of Ojabo and why Ojabo, you answered the question. The media loves him. The media loves him. The media thinks very highly of him. And the media has put him higher and higher in the draft. The reason why is because NFL teams have this philosophy that I think fans don't realize. Fans look at the production for a guy, and they want to see the production. NFL teams look for traits. And if you give me an athlete, I can coach him up. This is why Jason Pierre-Paul goes high. This is why Ziggy Ansah goes high. Because if you give me an athlete, I don't care that he's only played 5 years of football. You give me an athlete that can run the arc, I'll coach him up. I think the NFL truly believes in that philosophy. That's why Ojabo is going to go a lot higher than people think. Now, he's got to test well this weekend. If he doesn't test significantly better than Trayvon Walker, Jermaine Johnson, and the rest of that edge group, he may wind up in the middle of the first round. But there's no way he's going lower than 20 because he's got those traits and that dip and bend ability.
Yeah, he has to be an elite athlete this weekend, without a doubt, because that is what he's going off of. I'm the most elite athlete in this class, ideally. But, yeah, I'm curious as to what the New York Times would put out there for Ojabo and Ojulari. I mean, OJ2, or what kind of nickname they would have for that pass rush group.
OJ2 is interesting. Yeah. I like that. But listen, in terms of those two guys, right, you're getting two guys that fly off the edge. Why does it make sense for the Giants? Because you've got positional guys in the middle, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. So it makes sense to have two guys off the edge that fly. Because if I'm going to kick guys out and I'm going to lend protection there, so I'm going to turn around and have a tight end chip, or I'm going to turn around and have a running back pick that guy up. Now all of a sudden I've got less help inside, and that could free Leonard Williams up.
Yeah, it'd be a scary if they get to their potential. I'm a big Ojulari fan. He last year was my number one defense end. I'm a Georgia fan, but I like to evaluate my team accurately. But he was my number one guy last year. If they get to their potential, that's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, easily.
I agree.
So with the 8th overall pick, you have the Atlanta Falcons, and I think you're a fan favorite at this point. Obviously, you're going off of what you think teams are going to do. But Kyle Hamilton, safety, Notre Dame. I've talked to a couple Atlanta Falcon fans, and they want Kyle Hamilton so bad.
Yeah, this has got to be the floor, right? Atlanta is in a position where if the best player in the draft, which a lot of people think is Kyle Hamilton, is on the board for a team that needs secondary and not in the top 5, because again, we talked about positional value earlier, right? Safety's not high positional value, rule him out in the top 5. But if he's sitting there at 8, I don't see how he gets past this. We already talked about what he can do on the field and all the dynamic things that you talk about, right? With his range and his ability to play in the box and then go out high and do different things. And he's a turnover machine. The thing for Hamilton as far as his draft stock is exactly what Josh said earlier, right? It's exactly what you said earlier. He's just a safety. Yep. Unfortunately, that hurts him.
It does. And like I said before, I'd like to see him get that value back and try to be a corner. I don't think he will. I think he has too much value at the safety position because you can use him as a chess piece, as you said, the Jets possibly could. But I think you made yourself look very, very smart posting this on the 2nd of March, and you have a trade up here. You have the Green Bay Packers getting a pick from the Broncos in exchange for Aaron Rodgers. And that's not the smart part because I think everyone thinks that's an ideal spot for him. But sure. You have Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State, and after his combine, I mean, is he not wide receiver number 1 right now?
How could he not be? He runs a 4, the official time is in the high 4.3s, which for some reason is looked upon as bad after that 4.26. No. This is the best this is the best route runner in the draft class that just showed you the ability to hit the home run.
Yep.
Game, set, match. He could easily be the number 1 wide receiver off the board. If he's not the number 1 wide receiver off the board and it's still Garrett Wilson, I think Olave is too. And I think the jump there is that Olave winds up being, I think people had him around 5, 6, 7. I think he goes 2. The interesting thing would be, where would he go if Jameson Williams was healthy? I don't know. But Jameson Williams is not healthy, which is going to benefit a lot of guys in this draft. Olave is one of them.
So in this, you have the Denver Broncos acquiring Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers for the 9th overall pick, a 2023 first-round pick, and a 2024 conditional third-round pick, which is definitely fair compensation.
Sure.
I think it's understood that Aaron Rodgers wants to leave. He's just trying to, I don't know, keep his name in the media. I don't know what the heck he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, the part that I think is a little outdated about this trade is the reason I sent him to Denver was because I thought that they could make a play at Davante Adams as well. It's starting to sound like the Packers are going to tag Davante Adams and not include him in anything. They truly want to get a long-term deal done with him. They're willing to play hardball with Davante. I did not see that coming. I thought they would would even let Davante walk and use the tag elsewhere because they were just so confident that they were not going to be able to convince Aaron Rodgers to stay. Now, if they are able to convince Aaron Rodgers to stay and you've got Davante on a tag, that's beautiful. That is home run status right there for the back. But if you cannot, I really thought they were going to let Davante walk, and the team that was going to land Rodgers was also going to land Davante. Maybe that doesn't happen now, but if he winds up in Denver, he's got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick. That's a receiving core.
Yeah,
on top of that, he's got arguably the best tight end he's ever played with in Noah Fant, which has not been unleashed on the world yet, but I'm going to stand by that statement because somebody needs to feature this guy. He has all the ability in the world. Would somebody please let him have the football?
A quarterback might be able to do that. They don't have one in Denver right now.
That's true.
And he also might have one of the better running attacks. He has great running backs in Green Bay, but these running backs are just different in Denver right now.
True.
I don't know who you start there. I mean, I know the rookie looks really good, but
Melvin Gordon had a good year, but I think Javonte's got real superstar ability.
I do too.
I think he would get the look. I think he could have an Aaron Jones like breakout if you stuck Rodgers there. And then you have Melvin Gordon to be your guy to compliment. I don't know if it's Green Bay good. I'll disagree with you there just because I truly think A.J. Dillon is something we didn't see coming. I think everybody kind of thought that was a mispick, but the compliment that he has to Aaron Jones is splendid, and he can catch the football. I never saw that out of A.J. Dillon at this level.
Just say this about Green Bay. I don't like the way that they utilize their running backs. I feel like they take Aaron Jones out at the wrong times. Okay. The guy gets going, almost gets a touchdown, then they'll take him out, which, I mean, as a fantasy owner, I'm mad about. But I feel like Aaron Jones is a guy that he builds off of what he's doing. And you take him out, and then he kind of regresses a little bit, and then he gets going again, and they take him out again. And I don't know. I've just never been a fan of how they utilize Aaron Jones.
Okay, that's fair.
So you kind of touched on it earlier. I didn't look ahead. The New York Jets, with the number 10th pick, take Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. You guys get your pass rusher, Kayvon Thibodeau, and then you go and get your corner, like Nick Mangold has said to me for a while now. So
there you
go, worked out
Nick.
perfectly.
Nick, I hope I made you happy.
Yeah.
Listen, Sauce Gardner is an ideal corner for Robert Saleh, as I mentioned earlier, and he's this is one of those perfect scheme fits in this draft. I got a couple in this mock. This is one of them. It's so perfect. If he does test well, I think he's in play at 4. If he doesn't test well, this is the interesting part. If he doesn't test well, he might not be in play at all. Maybe the Jets turn around and change their strategy and they go sign a corner, and maybe at this pick, take your guy Charles Cross. Because there's rumors that they're not particularly pleased with Mekhi Becton right now. Ooh. So maybe they go take your guy Charles Cross and stick him at left tackle and try to move Mekhi Becton. Now, Mekhi Becton's looking like he's putting in the work in the offseason, so hopefully cross everything there and he's good and he can stay on the field. He's a beast when he's on the field, but there's some rumblings that they may not be happy with him. So if Sauce Gardner does not test well, maybe this is offensive line. But as of right now, I think Sauce is going to test fine, and I think he's in play for the Jets at 10.
So as a Cowboys fan, I always get a little freaked out with cornerbacks that don't get tested too much at the college level.
I can understand that.
Yeah. So I'm alluding to Morris Claiborne, and it's just it freaks me out, and I put it on his tape, and I might have a little bias here, but he wasn't as sticky as I expected him to be. Mm-hmm. He's good in coverage, but I just didn't see a first-round guy. I just felt like they looked him off a little bit too much, and they didn't even test him. Not saying not a first-round guy, sorry. Yeah, not a top 10 guy.
But not a top 10 guy.
Yeah.
If you were to check off his best trait, what would you pick?
I think he's really good at playing the ball.
And I think that's why the Jets need him.
Yeah.
Because their best corner right now is not so great at playing the ball. Bryce Hall is terrific in, staying with his man and trailing, and he's able to break up passes. But that goose egg in the interception department, Sauce Gardner gives them a different element.
So with the 11th pick, you also have it's a trade that happened before. You had the Commanders move up, Carolina Panthers move back. And with that 11th pick, you have Trevor Penning, offensive line, Northern Iowa. And I was at the Senior Bowl, and I saw this guy tossing people around like ragdolls.
Oh, yeah.
And it was well after the play was over. So he is a mean man. And I think he kind of fits what Carolina likes. I just imagine Carolina offensive linemen almost like I imagine Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Raven players. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but I just feel like they have to be nasty. And it might come down to, I want to say, the early 2000s. I feel like they were a nasty group of offensive linemen.
Yeah, they were. Ran the ball behind that behind Deshaun Foster. And then later on with D'Angelo Williams, right? They ran the ball. Jonathan Stewart, that nasty in the trenches, Jordan Gross era, right? So I'm with you. And Trevor Penning, you talked about at the Senior Bowl and why his stock went the way it did. He had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. He comes in with a nastiness. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He flirts that line of being aggressive. He goes, sometimes he's a little under and sometimes he's a little over. Very much like Taylor Lewan for Tennessee. And that's actually one of the comps that I have for him in a perfect world. In a perfect world, that would be a comp. I think the offensive line class as a whole is good, not great. And I don't know if its ceiling is super high, but I think Trevor Penning can be a quality starter for a team that wants to run the football. And we know Matt Rule wants to run the football. So
yeah, I agree with that. I love the potential of Trevor Penning. I don't think he's a finished product yet, obviously. I don't think too many players in this draft are finished products. But I love his nastiness, and I love the potential of him because you throw him in the run game, he's tossing people, and he's putting people on the ground, and he's setting a mindset that at the end of the game, these people aren't going to want to deal with him. And your running game is going to open up that much better because of that. And I love Trevor Penning, and he's one of my guys in this draft too. I'm curious where you're going to throw him. Right tackle, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that's a perfect spot for him.
Yeah.
And then with the 12th pick,
why don't you take this one? I got Trayvon Walker here. You just mentioned Georgia. You pitched me Trayvon Walker here.
Big Georgia guy. I have not watched him, not as a fan. I can tell you that. But Trayvon Walker, he's, I think, one of the best edge rushers in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he is. I'm trying to figure out my evaluation side of him, not my fan side of him.
I think what you like about Trayvon Walker in terms of the evaluator standpoint,
that's for sure.
Definitely an athlete. How many times they kick him inside and he won?
Yeah.
They did that a lot. They moved him around that offensive line. He can go 3-tech, 5-tech, 7-tech, win. That is something that actually, of the top edge rushers, Thibodeau, Hutchinson, Ajabo, Johnson, he's the only guy that can do what he can do. And that's a big chip on his shoulder as far as his draft stock goes. I think I have him too low. I can't figure out which team trades into the top 10 for an edge rusher. But if the Giants have 2 first-round picks and Joe Schoen said he's open for business, and the Jets have 2 first-round picks, and we all know Joe Douglas is going to be open for business, and Atlanta could move down, and Carolina could move down, somebody there has got to be looking to come up for an edge rusher. So I couldn't figure out who it was in this draft. I think Trayvon Walker is going to wind up in the top 10.
And I think he might end up with the Giants, depending on how David Ajabo tests.
Sure.
And you mentioned that before. Yep.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I love that pick. And we heard Dane Brugler a couple weeks ago say he's going to be a top 10 pick. So, take that for what you will.
I think the likelihood is there. I think that's playing good odds.
So, with the next pick, 13th overall, you have Cleveland Browns taking Drake London, wide receiver, USC.
Yeah, if we were on the spot right now, I'd have swapped that to Garrett Wilson. And the reason is Drake London didn't test, and that concerns me. This was an opportunity for Drake London to show everything in the repertoire. And I understand that the ankle may not be 100%, but if it was 90%, I would have given it a go. Because you don't have to go run the routes. We don't need you to run the routes. Just go show me a little bit. If you show me 90% and you show me 4.5 and 6.5 and 90%, I'm in. Sign me up. You show me that leaping ability that he's got, sign me up. And 90%, I'm good. I just wanted to see something, and I saw nothing. So right now, my overreaction theater would be I'm putting Wilson in. The only thing is, people forget that Baker loves to throw jump balls. The thing at Oklahoma that Baker loved was that 50-50 ball to Andrews. He loved it. He used to launch that thing up anytime he saw the opportunity. He has not had that guy out wide. Beckham is a great leaper, He's not a 50-50 go-getter. He made that phenomenal catch that he has ridden a career off of. He's better when you put the ball in his hands and say go. Drake London is the best 50-50 catcher in the draft.
You didn't have to bring up that catch, by the way.
That was unintentional. But yeah. Any case, Drake London is the best 50-50 pass catcher in the draft.
So my question would be, this draft is loaded at wide receivers.
Yes.
I could very easily... Alec Pierce, we talked about him prior.
Mm-hmm.
He blew up. He made money at the Combine this week. He had a 40-inch vertical.
Yeah.
6'3", 4'3", 4'3",
4.33 maybe official. Yeah, made some money.
Is he kind of what everyone was hoping Drake London would?
I don't know if you saw 4.33 out of Drake London, I think that's probably a little ambitious.
Yeah.
I think, again, a guy that's 6'5" like London, I think you're looking for somewhere in around that 4.5 range. I think is a great time. He's a 50-50 pass catcher. He wins in the red zone. He would solve a lot of issues that Baker's got in Cleveland, which is why if I'm Cleveland, I understand. I get it. The wide receiver class is loaded. Why not take a different need? Well, think about how many needs you actually have if you're Cleveland. If you sign Jadeveon Clowney, we've shored up the edge opposite Myles Garrett if you sign Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
We're going to walk in not needing corner, first time in a while. Linebackers, not really a spot at 13.
No,
offensive line set. You run the ball. You need pass catcher. I think if you take one at 13, why not take one again in the second round? Like, throw them until you hit them. You know? If you're going to know what Baker's got, you got to figure it out now, which means give him every opportunity to be successful. Throw him all the pass catchers. See if somebody hits.
No, I agree with that. You're doing that or you're taking the best player available because of what you have in that position. Like, I wouldn't be mad if they went defensive end there and had a rotation going.
Yeah,
but
possible.
It's very likely that they're going wide receiver, and I think a lot of people have them going wide receiver.
If you don't go wide receiver there, I think you have answered every single question you have about Baker Mayfield. Because if you don't go receiver there, it means you don't think that Baker Mayfield can be a guy that wins games for you. If that's the case, then you cannot pay him. You have to roll the dice trying to get a veteran in here, and that's it.
Yep.
If you think Baker can be your guy, you best take pass catcher at 13.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think they believe in Baker. I'll put that out there. So we'll see. So with the 14th overall pick, I'm following the Baltimore Ravens very closely because, like I said, I've been in a lot of Ravens spaces on Twitter, and I never considered this to be an option. Kenyon Green, interior offensive lineman, Texas A&M, but I absolutely love it. I'm so happy you did not do Lindenbaum there, because he's not a scheme fit.
No, he is not.
So I love Kenyon Green going there. I've always said I want to see Nakobe Dean go to Baltimore because I feel like the Baltimore Ravens defense, ever since Ray Lewis has left, is missing a leader. And Nakobe Dean is an absolute leader he's an alpha leader. I'll put it that way. He was at Georgia with nothing but 5 and 4 stars on the entire defense. And he's the guy that everyone looked at as this is the guy we're going to follow. And if you're that kind of a guy, I want you on my team.
Josh, I want you to keep that in mind for when you see Nakobe Dean later in this draft.
I will be very happy.
Everything in mind of what you just said and why you just said it. We're doing a little Big J move here for the people watching at home, right? We're giving you a little bit of taste of what's to come, but keep that in mind when we get to Nakobe Dean later in this draft. As far as Kenyon Green goes, Kenyon Green is one of my favorite players in the draft because you cannot teach intelligence on the offensive line.
Yes.
The Giants won 2 Super Bowls without any athletes on the offensive line, and Not even a true tackle. They stuck David Deal all over the lot. They stuck Chris Snee all over the lot. Sean O'Hara had a wonderful career because he was one of the smartest guys to play the position. There's a reason the network hired that guy.
Yep.
The network hired him because he's so intelligent and understands what it takes to be a pro at an offensive line. Kenyon Green has played a bunch of different spots on the line at Texas A&M. That, for me, is a massive check of the box. It's a little bit of a reach in terms of where he should go, maybe, based on where people have been projecting him. But I think the offensive line for the Ravens has become a little bit of a need. You're going to lose Bradley Bozeman, so you're going to need that inside guy. And if Patrick McCarry wants to move inside, they love Patrick McCarry, but they don't know where he should play.
Yeah.
So let's move him inside. Now, all of a sudden, you can do that. You could even throw Kenyon Green at right tackle.
Yep.
Or you could stick McCarry at right tackle and move Kenyon Green inside. You've got versatility here, and that's something Baltimore loves out of their offensive linemen.
Like I said, I never even thought about this. Kenyon Green, he's one of the top offensive linemen in this draft. Like you said, very flexible. And it doesn't matter if they sign Bozeman or not. You can still make this pick, and it'll still be a great pick.
Sure.
Absolutely love it. It's like right now my mind's blown just because I started reading Bozeman at center. I'm like, huh. And Linderbaum isn't a fit for them. He's better off in a zone scheme to where Kenyon Green is going to be better in the man blocking scheme and a power scheme.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people are sitting around like, man, this one guy hasn't gone yet, and he's considered the top tier guy in this draft. So with the 15th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles take Derek Stingley Jr. I think I know why you're going to say he fell in this draft, but I'd like to hear it from you.
For the record, don't sleep on Stingley falling even further.
I can see it.
What teams love to do in the NFL is they love to generate buzz around a guy in a negative way to get him to drop, especially if they think they can scoop him up. Derek Stingley is one of the better corners in the draft in terms of man coverage, super sticky, long corner. When the tape is good, it is phenomenal. When the tape is bad, it's ugly. And he's got an injury history. So because of that up and down roller coaster, he falls to 15. Now, having said that, this is another one of the perfect fits in this draft for me. Because, Josh, if I asked you for a player comp for Derek Stingley, I don't know if you've watched him or how much you've watched him. Okay. So if I asked for a player comp, where would you go? And then I'll give you mine afterwards.
I hate doing player comps. I really
do.
do.
Me too. But
I actually compared him to from last year's draft, Patrick Surtain.
Love that. And I like doing guys that are recent because you see traits and whatnot. I don't like going back and doing guys. No. But player comps are a good buzzword for a casual fan. For a casual fan of the draft, not even a casual NFL fan, just a casual fan of the draft. Player comps are a good buzzword that we all kind of have to lean into. I think Darius Slay is a perfect one.
There you go.
Because Darius Slay is really sticky in press man. And that's where I think Derek Stingley could be, and he makes plays on the ball, just like Slay does. Sticking the two of them opposite each other, I think could be a matchup nightmare for opposing teams.
For sure. And I will say Derek Stingley is one of the smoothest athletes on the field whenever he's playing. He really is. And I thought when I asked you why he fell, I thought you were going to say availability is the best ability because he's missed a lot of games.
Sure.
Patrick Surtain did as well. But what you saw when you evaluated Patrick Surtain was this super intelligent cornerback.
Yes.
I don't think you have that fully in Stingley just because he doesn't have the amount of games under him.
Agreed.
And he also doesn't have a Hall of Fame dad that's coached him up his entire career.
I would agree with that as well. Daniel Jeremiah made the Antonio Cromartie comp to Sauce Gardner.
Okay.
Which I think is fair. But I also think it could play to Derek Stingley. Just because in terms of Crow was such a smooth athlete that it almost looked like at times he wasn't trying. That's kind of the way Stingley is. He's
Yeah.
such a smooth athlete. He looks like he's just there, but he's right where he should be, trying to make a play on the ball, particularly in man coverage.
Yep, I agree. And so Philadelphia got lucky, and I'm very mad at the Indianapolis Colts, but they got 2 back-to-back picks. So with the 16th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Jermaine Johnson, the edge out of Florida State / Georgia / Joku. Blew up at the combine. He's super talented, or not the combine, the Senior Bowl.
Senior Bowl.
Super talented kid. Obviously recruited at Georgia, had off the field issues, had to go to a Joku school, and then he ended up at Florida State. I don't think he fully has hit his development yet, and I think there's a lot of the talent to unlock there. So I'm not happy with this pick, but go ahead and tell me.
I would agree, and I think that's why what he did at the Senior Bowl stood out so much, because there was such refinement to his game as a pass rusher that I don't think people saw on tape, and I don't think people expected. Maybe it's a credit to the coaching staff that got a hold of him that week. And if it is that shows you he's a sponge and he's able to soak things up and then spit them out and go quickly, right? That's a big trait to have. Jermaine Johnson has a huge weekend because he's going to have a lot of questions to answer. Those JUCO questions are going to come up. He's got to answer them head on. So he's got a big weekend in terms of the interview process. In terms of testing, he'll be fine testing. He's an athlete.
Yeah.
But he's got a big interview process to lock himself in as a top 20 pick.
So with the 17th overall pick, you have.
Why don't you take this one? Because this is your boy.
Yeah, this is my guy. Los Angeles Chargers. You have them getting my guy in last year's draft, Slater. And now they just got Charles Cross, my guy who I just said earlier, I would put right under Slater in last year's draft out of Mississippi State. This guy, he's a super pass rusher, pass protector. But he's a finesse run blocker. I think he does everything technically sound in the run game, and he's got the speed to get to the next level. You just didn't see a lot of it when he was playing in college. Mississippi State, they do a lot of the spread offense, and he's pass blocking 90% of the time. So I want to say, if I remember correctly, he gave up only 2 sacks his entire career. And
Maybe.
It wasn't very much. And I know he, over and above, I think he had like 400 pass protecting plays in last season. He's an elite pass blocker, like I said prior. But I love the fit just because you're protecting Justin Herbert beyond the edges there. No one's getting by them. I promise you that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Where would you play him and Slater?
If I had to.
Who goes to right?
I would hate to move Slater, but I think Charles Cross has to be a left tackle.
I agree. I don't think Charles Cross goes to the right-hand side. That was the point of the move here.
Yeah.
The point of the move here was the Chargers have the middle to left-hand side actually solidified.
Yeah.
So if you take Slater and put him on an island at right tackle, he can actually be extremely successful. So I think that's a move that you can make, and I think now you have a really athletic front for a team that's going to want to chuck and duck and run the ball, in space, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the Chargers could become an even more electric offense than they were.
And I'm excited for the screen game as well because they're very athletic tackles, and I think the screen game opens up. I think it would be hard to sell to the fans. Hey, we're going to draft Charles Cross, who everyone has in the media as the third offensive tackle, and then we're going to move Slater to right tackle, who was an all-pro offensive tackle. I think it would be a hard sell, but in my mind, you solidified it for years. Like, that's a beautiful thing.
You sell fans with wins.
Yeah, there you go.
This helps wins.
So with the 18th overall pick, New Orleans Saints take Matt Corral, quarterback, Ole Miss. I'm curious because I haven't been following the New Orleans Saints since Sean Payton has left. Are they going to run the same offensive scheme?
I'm not so sure, but what
No.
I do know is that they are $76 million in the hole.
Yes.
And you need a rookie quarterback to get out of $76 million
That
in
is
the
true.
hole, which is why Matt Corral is here at 18 from a prediction standpoint.
And I say that because I think Matt Corral would be a beautiful fit with Sean Payton.
Me too.
He really would.
Me too.
Do you have anything to say about this, or it's just a
Look,
we need something here?
I don't love the quarterback class as a whole because I don't know if you've got guys that are worthy of investing in first rounds. I would rather build an offense, a unit, and then insert the quarterback last. What I will say from Corral's standpoint, the dude has a chip on his shoulder the size of the entire state of Louisiana.
Yep.
He runs with it when he's running the football. He leads with it on the sideline at Ole Miss. And then he turns around and he slings some passes in there that I don't know that he can make at the next level, but he's going to sling them and he's going to take the risk. And for an offense that hopefully is going to be ran in a Sean Payton offense, I think Dennis Allen stayed there. So it would make sense for the offense to stay there, right? Hopefully that offense sticks around. It makes a lot of sense for Matt Corral to run. You give him Michael Thomas, you give him Alvin Kamara. Most importantly, you give him a defense that's actually pretty underrated. So we'll see if they can make it successful. If I were grading the pick, I don't love it because I think this could wind up setting New Orleans back. But listen, you are so many $1 million in the hole. You got to get a rookie quarterback in here and hit on it just so that you can alleviate yourself from cap hell.
I agree. You need to do something. I am curious. Did they guarantee Taysom Hill's contract?
I don't think they did. I think it's a bunch of incentives.
Okay.
So
that's what was running in the back of my head when I saw it was I thought I heard they guaranteed it. If they did, I think they're going to have to run with Taysom Hill, which is not going to be pretty.
Yeah, it's gross.
But, yeah.
That's gross.
With the 19th overall pick, you have a trade here. The Philadelphia Eagles acquired Calvin Ridley.
Yep.
Which
this trade looked a lot better pre-Amari Cooper cut.
You're making the Philadelphia Eagles an actual good team here.
This trade looked a lot better pre-Amari Cooper cut. Right now, it does not look as good because I would put the Eagles as the favorites to land Amari Cooper because you don't have to give anything up, and you can turn around and take a guy that probably complements Devonta Smith a little better than Calvin Ridley does.
Well, here's my thing. I think they're very similar players. I think Amari Cooper is a great route runner. I think Devonta Smith is a great route runner. Both possession receivers. I think Amari Cooper is a bigger body.
Mm-hmm.
Or should I say Devonta Smith is a smaller Amari Cooper.
I agree, but again, Calvin Ridley is a smaller, right? So, we're doing the same thing again.
But I think you get more of a deep threat from Calvin Ridley than you do any of these guys.
I do too, but I think as far as Cooper goes, I think Jalen Hurts makes the most sense to keep it from 0 to 15. I think he could be really good there. I think when you start trying to stretch it down the field, I think that's when he gets into trouble, when they try to take those shots down the field. I think that's when he kind of gets into trouble. He's a rhythm thrower. Like in basketball, like a rhythm jump shooter. He's a rhythm thrower. He can get into a rhythm and get really hot.
I say that about Desmond Ritter in this draft. I think he's.
I agree with that 100%. Desmond Ritter is a rhythm thrower.
Yeah.
If you give him a guy like Cooper who can win in that short area, I think that makes more sense than having to give up the 19th overall pick for Calvin Ridley. But in this scenario, I gave up the 19th overall pick for Calvin Ridley, and now we get Atlanta here from the trade, which is interesting from Atlanta's perspective because do you turn around and take wide receiver? I think that's in play. Calvin Ridley is only getting traded because it makes the most sense for a team trying to turn over the roster a little bit. And in Matt Ryan's case, Matt Ryan just had a very successful year without him. So instead of paying Calvin Ridley at 28 years old, you let him walk and you try to bring in a young guy. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't see how Atlanta passes on Devin Lloyd, though, the same way I don't see how they pass on Kyle Hamilton. Those are two outstanding chess pieces on the defensive end. They currently have 0.
Yeah.
They have Grady Jarrett, who's a great individual player, and A.J. Terrell, who had a terrific year, and that's it. That's all you got on defense. So if you want to go win an NFC South that has taken a step backward now with all that Tampa Bay has lost, you got to fix that defense.
That I've said that if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I want to go down to that division. I want to go to Tampa and figure out how to win because I'm guaranteed a playoff. If they do not get a quarterback there, this division's wide open.
Wide open.
So Devin Lloyd, he's a big splash player. He will give you 3 to 4 amazing plays in a game. Whether it's in the rushing ability that he has, his coverage ability. He might get lost a little bit sideline to sideline. He loses it with his eyes.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, you watch him and he just explodes off the
I
tape.
forgot about one of the guys on the defensive side of the ball for Atlanta, and that's Deion Jones, who's an excellent player in his own right. I didn't give Deion Jones enough credit there in that little rant. But Deion Jones is actually why Devin Lloyd makes a lot of sense here. Because Devin Lloyd gets to play downhill like he shot out of a cannon, and Jones will go sideline to sideline and cover.
Yeah, there you go. So you have where the Steelers traded up, I believe. Yep. Steelers traded up. You have the Houston Texans at number 20, and they get George Karlaftis. They edge Purdue. I have not watched this guy yet, so I cannot speak on him other than what I've heard of him. And from what I understand, his ceiling is very low, but he has a high floor.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I'll be honest with you. I kind of wanted to take Karlaftis out of this first round. It has nothing to do with the player. I like the player. I think he's solid. I think he does what you see is what you get. Yeah. Sets the edge well, wins with power. He's always going to be in the right spot positionally. That just doesn't lend you a first round pick anymore. Because if he's a solid 8 to 10 year pro, that's wonderful. But we want guys that are exploding off the edge in that first round. Again, I would go back to Ajabo. Give me athlete. I will teach you technique. That is the NFL philosophy.
Yep.
Karlaftis doesn't fit that. So Karlaftis is here. There again, another asterisk. Karlaftis is here for now.
And you had something else go through my brain as well, just like you did when you mentioned OBJ's catch. That's why Dallas took Taco Charlton over TJ Watt.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Thank you, Dallas.
Nailed that.
So with the 21st overall pick, another pick that I'm like, okay, yeah, I love that. New England Patriots select Barnard Raymond, offensive tackle, Central Michigan. Yeah. I will say I love the guy. As soon as I found out he is a foreign, I think he's a foreign exchange student that came over, played wide receiver at first, 2 years at tight end, and then he played 2 years at tackle. And you put on the film and you're like, this guy only has 2 years? Because you see there's little technique issues that he needs to correct. But then you see him in the run game, and you're like, goodness. This guy, I talked about Trevor Penning before. He's on par with Trevor Penning with his nastiness and just his overall ability at run blocking. And then you put on the where he's pass blocking, and then you're like, I see the technique issues, but he's there. Like it can click like that for this man, and he can be super good.
And doesn't it make the most sense for him to go to a team that takes traits on the offensive line and makes them blossom? Right. That's New England's thing went from the ages of Dante Scarnecchia and taking all these guys like a guy like Trent Brown and making him what he was. That has not been lost since Scar left the building. They still do a wonderful job of it. Michael Owenu has become a terrific player for them in terms of the guard. Justin Herron, every time Justin Herron gets a look, he produces. Isaiah Wynn has not been successful because the best ability is availability, and he is not available. So if you're looking to replace something on an offensive line where you're going to lose Trent Brown and maybe you lose Isaiah Wynn, I need a tackle to come in here, and for a team that's going to want to run the ball to win, line up Raymond at right tackle and say, we're going that way. We are going full speed ahead, right behind this guy, and let him learn how to win in pass protection over time.
And I think that's what you have to do with this man. You have to throw him in, and he'll learn. I believe you get to the end of the season, he'll be just fine. You're
Me
not
too.
going to have an issue with him.
Me too.
So, as a Georgia fan, I will have to say I slightly disagree with this pick, and it very well could happen depending on how his combine goes.
Mm-hmm.
But with the 22nd overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders take Jordan Davis, interior defensive lineman, nose tackle out of Georgia.
So
Now,
talk to
this
me.
guy, he's a 2-down lineman,
For sure.
but he's trying to lose weight. I think he's trying to lose 20 pounds come combine. He understands that he needs to get more of a pass rush, which I think he's very good at the pass rush already. It's just he gets tired easily. And he understands that he needs to be a 3-down lineman. And if he can get to that point, this is a no-brainer pick.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's got to steal the draft. I compare him to John Henderson.
Okay, I like that.
And I say I don't like doing comps, but I see this guy, and it's John Henderson 2.0. But I think he's a candidate to fall into the second round.
I agree with that. The reason he went here is because of the uncertainty the Raiders have at the interior defensive line position. You're going to lose Solomon Thomas this offseason, most likely to the Jets. No big deal. I think the reunion for Solomon Thomas and Robert Saleh makes a lot of sense, especially because the Jets are going to need some defensive line. I think Sheldon Rankins is probably a cut, so Solomon Thomas can slide in and do versatile things, and I think he makes sense to wind up elsewhere instead of not with the Raiders. And Jonathan Hankins is a free agent as well. So for right now, that's why this pick was there at 22. But if you're telling me that Jordan Davis slides, interior defensive lineman slide.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
Safeties don't go top 5. Interior defensive lineman slide. Plain and simple.
The NFL, we've talked about this throughout this entire show. The NFL has certain things they like, and they have certain things they don't like.
Yep.
They don't care for nose tackles too much.
No, they do not.
Unless you're super athletic.
Or you're Dave Gettleman.
Yeah, there you go. So with the 23rd overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals take Trent McDuffie, cornerback, Washington. What do you have there?
This is one of DJ's favorite players. DJ raves about this guy, and he's raved about him on his big board, and he thought he was in play for the Jets at 10 in his first mock. McDuffie is a all-around solid corner, willing to tackle, plays the nickel, does a lot of things, moves around. Interestingly enough, they've got a guy like that in Byron Murphy, so here's a second guy that does similar things, and you can kind of build a defense that way in terms of the two chess pieces. Excuse me. McDuffie, for me, is not going to go as high as people think, just because I think the NFL is going to view his best ability as his ability to play nickel. That's actually a reason. That's actually a reason for him to slot, for a team to try to build some negative buzz around him and scoop him in round 2 at the top of that board. So teams can try to play into that and say, listen, maybe he's only a nickel, and try to feed that to the media, and then maybe a team backs off of it. And, you know, listen, it sounds silly, but it happens a lot.
Oh, it does.
Where teams feed information to the media, and then another team goes and evaluates and is convinced of something that maybe they didn't see the first time. Again, if I sit here and tell you that a movie is phenomenal and the movie is really good, but it's not great, you're not going to like it as much because I sat here and told you the movie was phenomenal, right? This is a common human thing to do. So it works. It has a track record of working, and maybe a team is able to do it with McDuffie.
So I agree, and I love Washington corners just overall. Since I'm trying to think of who the cornerback was that went to at the time, San Diego Chargers, that didn't work out, and I think he's now in San Francisco. Can't think of his name right now. Yeah, Jason Verrett. I love what Washington puts out. Elijah Molden was a really good corner last year. He might have been a top 5 corner if you put it in that class, the rankings, cornerback class. He was probably the 5th best, one of the 5th best cornerbacks in that draft.
Yeah.
But positional value, he's a nickel guy.
Yep.
He's a slot guy. So he fell down to the third round. You could see Trent McDuffie fall because of that, but he's a great player. He can cover very, very well.
Yeah, for me, I'm trying to be accurate. And again, based on the buzzwords from DJ, from Jeremiah, and the buzzwords from the guys that are putting him high in mocks, I think there's a lot of warrant for him being in one of the first round selections. I just don't see him at 10 for the same reason that you were talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And then with the 24th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys take my guy, Nakobe Dean, linebacker, Georgia. I don't think it happens. I mean, I would love for this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Nakobe Dean gets out of the top 10. I really don't. But I would run around my house. I would start banging pots and pans. I would be super excited for this because I think he is a franchise-changing player.
Yeah.
His leadership, like I mentioned before, is unreal. I think he has, and I mentioned the name before, he's not the player that he is, but I think he has a leadership quality of Ray Lewis. And I think he can go on any team and be successful. And
that's the thing, right? We talked about this earlier of remembering what Josh had said about Nakobe Dean and his leadership. You want to know what the Dallas Cowboys are missing right now on defense? A leader.
And we might be missing our biggest leader. I think DeMarcus Lawrence is being considered as a trade or a cut candidate.
Yep, which again, Micah Parsons at least solves your issue there. I don't think you have to rush to an edge rusher because Micah Parsons gives you a lot of, again, you could a chess piece, move them around. Yep. What I think you need is a leader. I think you need a three-down linebacker you need in general.
Yes.
But if he comes with a leadership tag, now you've hit a home run.
Yes.
And this is a home run pick for the Dallas Cowboys and one of my favorite fits in the draft. Josh, I will disagree with you. I actually think it has a better chance to happen than you think. And the reason is off-ball linebackers, not a darling of the first round.
Yeah.
So I think he winds up being in the second half of that draft, of that first round, and all of a sudden maybe Dallas is in play.
The only thing that comes to mind is Roquan Smith. Correct me if I'm wrong, was a top 10 pick.
He was 8.
He was 8. He was a smaller linebacker.
I think he was 8.
I think he was. Small linebacker. Nakobe Dean, smaller linebacker. But you put Nakobe Dean and Roquan Smith up against each other, Nakobe Dean beats Roquan at every skill set. I promise you that. Coverage ability. That was Roquan Smith. Everyone said he couldn't cover. Yep. Nakobe Dean didn't give up a single touchdown in coverage his entire career at Georgia. He's very, very good at rushing the passer. And his sideline-to-sideline ability is you did not watch a tackle in Georgia without seeing at least Nakobe Dean around that tackle.
Yeah. Listen, Nakobe Dean is a hell of a player.
Yes.
In terms of the draft that Roquan went went 8th to the Chicago Bears. I am staring at the draft right now in the first round. The first edge rusher we have off the board is Marcus Davenport at 14 via a trade. As a matter of fact,
the TJ Watt.
It could be the Watt draft in 2018. I think that does check out. But what I'm getting at here is edge rushers in this draft were not valued highly. Yeah. On top of that, yes, you've got a bunch of quarterbacks that go, but if I'm looking for defensive pieces, if there's not a lot of edge rushers, we're talking back 7, and there is a all-world talent as an off-ball linebacker, he can go a little higher if the edge class is lower. That's not the case this year. The edge class is terrific. So the edge class has exploded. They're talking about 8 edge rushers in the first round, which is a ridiculous number. That could let Dean slide.
So you did have Bradley Chubb in this draft. He went number 5 to Denver.
Bradley Chubb was 5th.
Yeah,
that's right.
Denzel Ward, cornerback. But yeah, Roquan Smith. You had Vita Vea as well. Deron Payne. So you had the talent there.
But we're talking about guys at non-premium positions, right? Deron Payne, Vita Vea, Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds, I think, is in this draft in 19.
You also had
to,
Derwin
to,
James, which
to
fits that
Buffalo.
safety.
Derwin James, non-premium positions, right?
You had
This draft has premium positions.
elite talent, but fell in this draft. I think a lot of people thought he could go top 10, and he just fell because of his position.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we also have the 25th overall pick. Buffalo Bills take Kyler Gordon, cornerback Washington, another Washington guy. We love him here. Tell me about that pick.
Kyler Gordon is supposedly going to test really well, and I think that's a big thing in terms of what he's able to do, particularly in the drill portion of the show for when the DBs come up. Kyler Gordon is best served in off coverage. That's where people kind of rave about him. If he shows you quality technique in that backpedal drill and he shows you quality technique in the drill portion of the combine, I think you're going to see a guy that might surprise people, assuming that he tests well, and might go a little higher than people think. But again, if you read if you read what the experts are saying about him, it's not somebody that I have watched super closely. But again, we're doing this from an accuracy standpoint. And when I read about him from an accuracy standpoint, is a guy that can rise if he tests the way people think he's going to test.
So the only shocking thing I have so far in the cornerback class is I'm shocked Andrew Booth hasn't gone yet.
Well, I'll get into that if you want to dump into it. So let's dive into that, because Andrew Booth is a darling of a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there's a huge asterisk next to that, because Andrew Booth has not been seen on a number of high profile mock people, right? The McShays and the Kuipers and the Daniel Jeremiah. So if I'm trying to predict this, and I'm trying to go from a prediction standpoint, I understand that Andrew Booth can do things in coverage that a Kyler Gordon cannot do, and a Trent McDuffie maybe cannot do. But maybe there's something we don't know. And again, that's my pause for concern. If everybody's so low on this guy, there's something that we may not be privy to and may not know. Remember, around this time last year, people had Micah Parsons way down the draft board because of character issues that all came out around this time of year. And then he wound up going to Dallas and it never mattered, right? So Andrew Booth could wind up being in that 15 range. But I haven't heard I haven't heard of anything around Andrew Booth from the big guns, which makes me think that there's something there that maybe people are missing. So from a prediction standpoint, I dropped Andrew Booth in this. I could be wrong, but again, I'm going for it to be right. I don't agree that I would have Kyler Gordon over Andrew Booth. I'm with you. I would take Andrew Booth over him. I think that's a slam dunk. I think if you ask a lot of people, they would take Andrew Booth over Kyler Gordon too. But I haven't seen it that way.
If you would have asked me last year, I would have had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in the first round, just off of his talent alone. And he fell to the second round. And I was dumbfounded. I don't know how a team didn't jump on him the first pick in the second round. And like you said, off-ball linebackers, value's not there, but his talent is unreal. And the Cleveland Browns got a steal with him 100%.
And that might happen with Andrew Booth.
Yep.
Maybe people are overthinking Andrew Booth. Maybe people are like, you know what? I don't see the guy that's going to prevent people from taking the top off the defense. Or maybe I don't see the guy in trail technique that's going to really be able to stay with guys as they make moves. Maybe they're just overthinking him. That's possible. And Andrew Booth can wind up being a stud. Again, I just went from an accuracy standpoint trying to get every pick right. And I do think there is a possibility that Andrew Booth falls into the second round. And I'm with you, Josh. I think there's a possibility that Andrew Booth gets looked on later on as how did we miss this?
In every draft, you have that. And we mentioned him before, the 26th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans, and I love the fit. Tyler Linderbaum, interior offensive lineman, center, Iowa.
You mentioned the fit at 14 and why Kenyon Green made sense. This is why Tyler Linderbaum makes sense at 26. And this is also Tyler Linderbaum's floor, in my opinion, because they're losing Ben Jones at the center position, as they should. Ben Jones is 32 years old. He's going to garner some money. You don't necessarily need to pay a 32-year-old center 927 over 3 years. I don't think the Titans are in a position where they have to do that. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nod, nod, New York Jets. But Tyler Linderbaum fits them perfectly. And Tyler Linderbaum, listen, that dude competes. That dude, when he gets his hands on you, he's terrific at the point of attack. He could pull. He could do a lot of things for a team that's going to use him in that way, in that running system.
And a super intelligent center. And I think it's perfect for Tennessee because you have that run game there. But he's going to put everyone in the correct position. And he's going to be one step ahead of that defense. And I think that's something people aren't thinking. And I love that you have him falling compared to a lot of mocks because you have a lot of people that just want to plug and play. They don't consider the scheme, and they're just, look, top center, let's put him there. And I appreciate that. I just have to let you know that.
I appreciate that.
So with the 27th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama.
This was before the news that Godwin was likely to get tagged. If Godwin gets tagged, I don't see this happening. I see them going the defensive side because if Godwin gets tagged, Carlton Davis does not. Carlton Davis likely walks. This could be a cornerback spot. This could be Andrew Booth. If Godwin does not get tagged and Godwin walks, now all of a sudden you bring wide receiver into play. And I'm telling you right now, I don't care the injury. If you give Bruce Arians the chance to pick Jameson Williams and they do not tag Chris Godwin, call it a wrap. Just move on. That will be the pick. Just move on.
So we do have a question here. We already mentioned it. Where do you see the Vikings going at 12? I personally prefer Sauce Gardner, but he's flying up draft board, so I'm losing hope that he's available to us. Well, we hear, not we, but we have the Vikings selecting Trayvon Walker, edge, Georgia.
Yep.
So let us know what you think about that pick.
Absolutely.
But we are moving on to the 28th overall pick with the Green Bay Packers. We saw they had a pick earlier when they traded Aaron Rodgers. Here you have them taking Quay Walker, linebacker, Georgia.
This is an interesting one for me because I'll be honest with you. I know you're a Georgia guy.
Yeah.
What people see with Quay Walker, I don't know if I see it. I'm a little concerned about the ability. I think Walker has a tendency to overplay. And that's a big concern for me.
Yeah.
Because if you play the ball, if you play with your eyes and not your brain in the NFL, you're going to get rickrolled. And I think that's a bit of a problem for Walker. So I don't love this pick, but I know people love the physical traits, and I know people love the talent, and I know people love the thunder that he can bring. And I know that he stands out as somebody who is competing on every down. So from that perspective, I understand why he is really well liked. I would question this one in the first round. Again, it's just my opinion. I'm doing this from an accuracy standpoint.
Yeah.
Green Bay needs a 3-down off-ball linebacker, so he makes a lot of sense. I just don't know if he's going to be that guy at the next level.
No, I agree with your assessment. I think he's a very good athlete. I think he gets sideline to sideline, but you do need the eyes to match the brain. And if those are disconnected, then you're not going to – and I will fully admit last year I didn't like Micah Parsons because I did not think the eyes matched the brain. I thought his eyes would send him one way when he should be going the other way. And I just didn't think it was going to work out. And regardless, another reason why Nakobe Dean makes a great fit, his off-the-field issues played a big role for me why I didn't like him.
Sure.
But yeah, I agree with your assessment. I think he could be someone that could slide to the second round as well. I think when you get a lot of talent on a national championship team, people like to push them up the board a little bit. And I think that's what you could be seeing here. And then with the 29th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State.
This is a little low for Garrett Wilson, but again, it's a loaded wide receiver class. So wide receivers could fall. It happens a lot. It happens more than you think. A guy like Justin Jefferson falls to 22 in Minnesota because the wide receiver class was viewed as really, really good. Now, does that excuse why Philip picked Jalen Reagor? No, it doesn't. But that's a different story. Garrett Wilson is a guy in this draft that I think people view as the new wide receiver one because of Jameson Williams' injury. My question for those people would be, what does Garrett Wilson do that Chris Olave does not do? And what does Garrett Wilson do that Chris Olave does not do better? And I think the NFL, I truly believe the NFL is going to agree with me on this one. And I think Olave is going to go ahead of Garrett Wilson. Now, having said that, Garrett Wilson just blew the doors off of the combine as well. So the good chance is that Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave go in the top 20.
That's very likely, but like you said, no one thought Justin Jefferson would be there. Dallas did not think CeeDee Lamb was going to be there in that draft as well. When you get a loaded, and this might be one of the most loaded, I feel like we're like one-upping every year with this wide receiver class.
Oh, yeah.
This could be the most loaded wide receiver class I've ever seen. You're going to go into the 4th, 5th, 6th round and find a really, really good receiver. There's a guy people aren't talking about, Bo Melton. Super athletic. He has a little bit of a drop issue. Not 100% catch. Doesn't have the softest hands. But he'll blow the top off of you. He's a special athlete. And you could kind of use him in that... I'm trying to think of the player's name right now. The Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver. Can't think of it right now.
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill.
Use him that way?
You can use him in a Tyreek
Hill
role, and probably in the 6th round. Rutgers guy. If you didn't pay attention. What's that?
Big time speed.
Yeah.
Like true track speed.
Was he 4.28?
He was something low.
Yeah.
True track speed. We talked about another guy than Alec Pierce. I don't think Alec Pierce is going before the 3rd round. It's a guy who made some money this weekend by showing elite athleticism, right?
I think he might jump up.
People thought that about Chris Conley, and Chris Conley still stayed where people had him. So I think I get the point with Alec Pierce. But listen, that's the thing about this class. This class has a lot of receivers and a lot of good ones. Does it have a Jamar Chase? Probably not. But it's got a ton of guys that can be, at worst, wide receiver 2s. And that's a really valuable thing. For
sure. So with the 30th overall pick, Kansas City Chiefs take Treylon Burks, wide receiver, Arkansas.
Yeah, this was also prior to the Tyreek Hill contract extension talks that kind of rumbled around in the last 48 hours. But those don't have to come to fruition. Tyreek Hill is going to be a free agent in the coming years, as is Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce is on the older end. Pass catcher is actually a sneaky need for the Kansas City Chiefs. Treylon Burks is a terrific fit for the Kansas City Chiefs because it's 6'2". He goes and wins down the field. I don't care about the 4.55 40 time. Get out of here with that noise. The guy's 6'2", plays faster than that. Don't care. Cooper Kupp ran a 4.61. You think anybody cares about that right now? I don't think so. Treylon Burks is a legitimate player. Now, the 40 time could be why he falls. He could fall for athletic testing because this class is so tight. So if somebody sat there and said, hey, you know what? I like Christian Watson better than Treylon Burks. I can't really argue with you. Christian Watson's a heck of a player. So Treylon Burks could fall a little bit just because the class is so close together that if somebody's looking for a separator, maybe it is that 40 time. But that doesn't make Treylon Burks a bad player because he falls. Treylon Burks is still a big-time player with the ball in his hands, and he does things at 6'2" that you just don't expect. So I think Treylon Burks is a good fit for the Chiefs. Again, the Tyreek Hill talks, maybe that's not where they go anymore, but I will tell you this. This is a great tight end class as well. I know we haven't had one yet because we don't have one in the 1st round. This is a terrific tight end class. Don't sleep on the Kansas City Chiefs picking Travis Kelce's successor in this class.
Ooh.
Don't sleep on it.
I'm curious. I have to follow up on that. Who do you think would be that pick?
That pick to me makes the most sense to be either Weidermeyer or Jeremy Ruckert.
Okay.
Because you can get them lower in round two. I don't think they'll have the opportunity to pick an Isaiah Likely. I don't think they'll have the ability to pick a Trey McBride. And I don't think Greg Dulcich does what they need him to do. I like Dulcich better when he's in the slot. I don't love him as much when he's in line. But Ruckert, I love Ruckert when he's in line, man. I think
Yeah.
Ruckert is a legit. I don't understand why Ruckert does not have the buzz that McBride does. I think he's big time.
Yeah, I like him as well. And you mentioned my favorite guy in this draft. I think he's a little bit of the chess piece. You can move him around, more of an H-back rather than a tight end, a traditional tight end. Isaiah Likely.
Love Isaiah
love
Likely.
him. I think you can easily draft him as a fullback and just use him as a complete weapon at that position.
Oh yeah, you can move him all around the board and he will find success.
Yep. So with the 31st overall pick, you have the Cincinnati Bengals taking Zion Johnson, interior offensive line, probably guard, Boston College.
Definitely guard. If this is available, just put it in pencil in every mock you do. This is the move in the back end around one that just makes too much sense. The Cincinnati Bengals are in a position where if they solve their offensive line, they can run it right back next year and make another deep run. Zion Johnson is a plug-and-play guard from day one.
Yep.
He looks like an 8 to 10 year pro. Is he elite? No. But does he have a bad trait? No. So plug Zion Johnson in, start him from day one, and just go.
And you heard that from DJ today at the Combine. Early on, Zion was running his 40, and he said this is an 8 to 10 year pro at the NFL level. So with the last pick in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Sam Howell, quarterback, North Carolina.
This is why Detroit is in play for Malik Willis at 2. Because if we're admitting that they're in play for a quarterback at 32, which everybody has said that they are in play for a quarterback at 32 to get a fifth-year option on a guy that can sit behind Goff for a year and then go. If that's what everybody has said, then why not just take the runaway quarterback at the top of the draft? Why not take the only guy in the draft with elite traits?
Yep.
And sit him. Do exactly what you want to do. Take Malik Willis at 2, sit him for a year, do exactly what you want to do, just do it at 2, and then take an edge rusher at 32. Is there a huge difference in this draft between Aiden Hutchinson at 2 and Logan Hall at 32? Assuming that would be a Logan Hall. I had Logan Hall go a little lower. But is there a huge difference between an Aiden Hutchinson and a Logan Hall, or an Aiden Hutchinson and a Boye Mafe?
There you go.
I don't think there's a huge difference. I just don't.
I don't either. I will say Aiden Hutchinson, I threw on his film and immediately I was like, this is my guy. He's a top player in this draft. No questions asked. And this is early on in the process.
That's fair. He's got a motor, man.
He does. And he has Jared Allen-ish skill to him.
Okay.
And going off a motor, he has TJ Wattish things going with him. And I love it. I also had Brett, a part of the show. He's in Florida right now taking his daughter to Disney World. And he said he reminds him of the old, I'm bad with names, as you can tell throughout this show. I am awful with names. Chandler Jones.
Sure. Motor.
Yep.
So again, if you're of that ilk, if you're of that mindset, then maybe you do take Aiden Hutchinson too, because he's a sure thing. But if you don't think that Aiden Hutchinson is that much better than edge rusher 5 or 6, and again, Detroit could sit there and trade up, right?
Yeah.
Detroit could trade in the middle of round 1 and go get, the Jermaine Johnson, and all of a sudden your draft is Malik Willis and Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if you think that they're in play for a quarterback, which everybody does, and I actually like this fit for Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell needs to hit a reset button. This is who I gave them Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell needs to hit a reset button and sit for a year. And I think you could see the guy that people thought once upon a time had a chance to be a number 1 overall pick. But in terms of Willis has elite traits. Yeah. So if you're going to sit a quarterback, why not just pick the guy at 2 and sit the guy at 2 with elite traits? That's my thought.
I agree with it, but please do not take the joy of seeing Aiden Hutchinson and Dan Campbell together. Don't take that away from me. I just want to see it.
Listen, as a Jet fan, I kind of hope I do. because that joy that you have of Aiden Hutchinson
That's
and
true.
Dan Campbell, I have the joy of Aiden Hutchinson and Robert Saleh.
Definitely. I can see that. And
Yeah.
I was actually, when I went to Mobile, I sat in at a little convention where Dan Campbell and Robert Saleh were together talking, and it was beautiful. Um, just the pure joy of football, and you could just tell they
Guys
loved
being
the
dudes.
game. Yes, they loved the game of football
Yeah.
and the conversation they had. There was Nick Saban there, a lot of college guys. I could have sat there and listened to Dan Campbell and Robert Saleh talk the entire time. They were just, it was beautiful. And
Yeah.
I'm excited for the both of them for what they're going to do for these franchises. I really am.
I hope so,
think they're
man.
great coaches.
I hope so.
So, anyone that wants to see Jordan's second round, I'm not going to get into that because it took us an hour and 45 minutes to get through the first round. And I really appreciate you hanging with me throughout that time.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on.
Definitely. I hope to get you on again.
Yes, sir.
Again, you can follow Jordan at Jordan Katz 11.
At Jordan Katz 11.
Yep. Again, I appreciate you can follow us, DSS Scouting. I'm Josh Wingate 302, and we are both a part of the Say It Again network. Thank you very much.